for coming. What's that? Yeah. Get used to those mics.
Yeah.
That's what we use.
So you guys have to turn yours off and on to
Uh-huh.
talk.
Well, listen, I
Are
want
these
to
all
thank
on?
everybody for coming. Let's go ahead and get started. We're trying to keep this to 1 hour. Everybody be respectful of the time on that. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to especially thank our candidates for being here and for y'all's willingness to serve our community on that. That's a big step, and I know it's a hard thing to do, to jump out there and do that, but we do appreciate y'all's willingness to do that, and we appreciate everybody coming and having an opportunity to meet their candidates. So there are a few rules we do on this. We're not going to be able to ask any questions from our audience on that, but the candidates can stay afterwards and answer and meet the audience if they would like to. We do ask that everybody be respectful of our staff's time and for our neighbors. This is right in the middle of our neighborhood, so we do try to keep our sound level down for our neighbors on that. I'd like to introduce Suzanne Major Davis. A lot of y'all may know Suzanne. She was a reporter for the Picayune, and we all know the Picayune. And she actually covered the Eanes School Board for years on that, and she was kind enough to be our moderator for this forum on that. So the forum that the type of we're gonna do on this, we're gonna start with Kelly, and we just so y'all know, we randomly put these names out there, and we're gonna start. So Kelly will get the first question. We'll ask you to keep your time to 3 minutes. When you get down to the 20 seconds on the 3 minute, I'm gonna flash my little white paper here, and that'll give you a time to close up on that conversation. The questions we gave you, we have 4 questions that we provided. Because one of our candidates is not here, we may have an opportunity to ask a 5th question, if that's okay with everybody. So we will kind of get started, and Suzanne, I'll let you take this, and I'm going to be right here if you need me.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And thank you all for coming. I'm Suzanne Majors Davis, your neighbor and fellow Eanes parent. As Tom mentioned, I covered Rolling Wood and Westlake and the school board for quite a number of years. And as a result, I know the time commitment and thick skin required to be an unpaid public servant. It's not for the faint of heart. So please join me in commending these men and women for the sacrifices they're willing to make to serve you and your children. Okay, so each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, beginning with Kelly.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kelly Marwell. I am my husband and I moved here 15 years ago and set down roots, and we've been completely invested in this community ever since. We have 3 kids, 16, 14, and 12. And our son at Hill Country is about to enter the marching band. We're very excited to start our Friday Night Lights adventures. I am trained as a trauma nurse. I also have practiced as a substitute nurse in all of our schools, and I started my own business as a legal nurse consultant. I work with attorney clients on their medical cases to represent doctors and defend them in their medical malpractice cases. I have been serving in our community for a long time. I first got involved with the school board when we had a group of parents that advocated to replace the portables at Cedar Creek. And today on the corner of the campus, you can see the learning studios there. And those studios have made such a significant impact on the educational journey of our students, thousands of students now, as well as the teachers and even the community as a whole, because we have a garden there as well. Once I did that, I was hooked. I became a Booster Club president and did a lot of amazing things with my team. But the thing I'm most proud of that we did was that we brought in a lot of community members and got them involved and invested. I also have served as president of Pop-Up Birthday, a nonprofit started right here in Rollingwood by the amazing Lila Scott. I am on the board of directors for the Westlake Chamber of Commerce, and I am chairing their leadership program. I have very much enjoyed my service to this community, and tonight you will hear us all talk about things that we would do. And then I'm also going to be letting you know the things that I've been doing for the past decade. Thank you.
James?
Good evening. I'm James Spradley. I want to start by thanking our hosts for this evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to come together as a community and learn more about the candidates for school board. I am in place 4 on the school board. My opponent is Robert Morrow, who's not here, and I encourage you, which is rare for a candidate to do, I encourage you to do your research on Robert Morrow. So the other 3 candidates here are for place 5, and I encourage you to also to research that position as well. I think this is very important for our district. I have served on the school board for 5 years. You have elected me twice. Thank you for that opportunity. My wife and I moved to Eanes ISD 22 years ago with an infant son. We, both of our sons, went to Eanes ISD schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. My older son is an aerospace engineer, and he works for NASA on the SLS rocket that's going to put humans on Mars in a few years. We're super excited about that. And my younger son is a junior at Purdue studying biomedical engineering, and he's going to be working on medical devices this summer in his internship. I say this not to brag, although I am a very proud father, honestly. But I say this because I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Eanes ISD, and that drives my service to this community. I am grateful for the education my children received, for the teachers they had, for the leaders in our school district. I'm grateful for those who served on the school board before me that have set up our district to be as excellent as it is. I'm grateful for the opportunity and more than willing to return to the school board for another term to serve you, to serve our community, and to help ensure excellence in Eanes ISD. And I thank you again for this opportunity to be here tonight. Look forward to answering these questions.
Thank you. Catherine?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. My name is Catherine Walker. I am running for Eanes, place 5. I am a parent of 3 young children in our district. My daughter Marguerite is in 2nd grade, and Atticus is my 4th grader. They both attend Bridgepoint Elementary, and Conrad is my 6th grader, and he is at Hill Country Middle School. Each of my children, all 3 of them, receive some level of special education services from the school. And we, all 3, have also been in our Spanish immersion program. And with both of those things, we have experienced both the highs and the lows and a discovery process, and also we can talk a little bit about what didn't go so well over the past few years. And none of that is to be ashamed of. I'm actually very proud of the journey that I and my children have been on together. We are also a big scouting family. So all 3 of my children are in Boy Scouts. My daughter's a Girl Scout. Sorry. All 3 of us are in scouting. So it's something that we do together as a family. So Conrad is in Troop 30. He's working on his tenderfoot, and we're trying to get through that first big phase in Boy Scouting. I am a den leader for 12 4th grade boys who are Webelos. And that's a lot of fun. And I'm also the advancement chair for PAC 39, so I assist the entire PAC with all of the advancements of all of the scouts. And my daughter, she is in Brownies and having a great time. She loves selling the cookies, but we have some extras, so see me after if you like some Girl Scout cookies. At a district perspective, I was on the Bond Oversight Committee as well as the Parent Special Education Group for obvious reasons. That was really important to me as a mother to be very involved with that, among other things. And professionally, I'm the Chief Financial and Risk Officer at Cap Metro, which is Austin's public transit authority. And I have big budget responsibility at Cap Metro. Right now, it's about $800 million between our operating and capital budgets. And so the challenges and questions that are facing Eanes don't scare me because I do this for a living. Lastly, I just wanted to mention a little bit about how I came to be at Cap Metro and how I came to be in the Austin area. I started my career in operations. I got my Six Sigma black belt, and then I decided I wanted to go and further my education. I got my master's degree, my MBA at Northwestern in Chicago. From there, I decided to go into management consulting, and I worked at Deloitte. And after I worked in Deloitte, I went to work in private equity, and that's a pretty tough environment, right? And landed at Cap Metro, and I'm so happy to be here in Austin with you all.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hi there. My name's Aaron Silva, and thank you for doing this. It's a joy to be here. I really appreciate it. And when I think about why I decided to run, first and foremost, I love the community. My wife and I, Ivana, and my two children that are here right now, our kids have been in the district since kindergarten at Bridgepoint, and we have really come to enjoy all the great things that this public education is bringing our kids. I'm a product of public education myself. Professionally, I have been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've been a CEO of my own companies for almost 30 years, companies that I built on my own, both very, very successful. I've employed hundreds of people over the years. And I think when you are an entrepreneur and a CEO, you bring a special skill, a special level of creativity and thought that I think is really, really important for us to have on this board. I believe that our school board should be a reflection of the community it serves. And we have a lot of really fine business leaders in our community, a lot of CEO type folks, and I don't see that on the board necessarily, and I think I could add a tremendous amount to help that board do things that they might not be aware that's possible. And that drives me to want to do it. To be a good CEO, you've got to be a great listener. One of my employees is right here in the front row, and she knows I think I'm a pretty good listener. You've got to be able to listen to be able to understand and make decisions. And so 2 years ago, I started on my own a podcast called Eanes Parents Unite Podcast, and it literally has been a 2-year listening tour. And I think I'm the only citizen in the community, frankly, that has put his reputation and his voice out there as I have, and I have talked about some of the most controversial and sensitive issues facing our system, our public school system here in Eanes, more than anyone else. And when you look at the guests that I've had on from all sides of the spectrum, I'm really genuinely interested to understand what everyone thinks about a particular issue. And that's the type of leadership, if I'm so fortunate to be seated, that's the type of leadership that I will bring to the board, in addition to my experience as a CEO and lifelong entrepreneur. I think I could be a tremendous asset to this community and to this school board. And for that, I thank you giving me time today to talk more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. James, the next question is, you'll start with, what would an Eanes budget and long-range planning forecast look like if you were on the board? Do you see the need to cut the budget? And if so, where? Are there things you would not consider cutting? Would you ask for more bonds? And if so, how would you pay for them?
Thank you. I think having 5 years on the board, you've kind of seen what my budgets look like. But to remind you, we ran positive budgets where we put money in the bank 4 out of the 5 years I've been on the board. The 1 year we missed was during COVID. We had an unexpected, of course, like all things during COVID, an unexpected hit to our rental revenue. So I have been proud to be part of a board that runs these types of budgets. We are facing some financial headwinds that I think we'll have a chance to talk about later, mostly imposed on us by the state funding model that every district in Texas lives under. Under those financial headwinds, I would say that I would prefer not to cut our budgets, and we do have some rainy day funds that we have put aside over the years, and would prefer to use those as much as I can. Over 85% of our budget goes to pay people. And when we start talking about cuts in our district, you would think at least 85% of those cuts would hit people. I don't like that idea. And therefore, I would keep any reductions in the budget as far away from the classroom as possible. We do not want to impact the education of our students. As far as bonds go, bonds are an interesting thing. They are a way that the state has given school districts to fund mostly growth in our state. A lot of growing school districts use bonds to pay for these new buildings. And bonds are interesting in that the tax money we collect on bonds all stays right here. We are not a growing school district. We're not a high growth school district, and therefore our bonds are used to help maintain our facilities. We are looking right now at a long range facilities planning committee that is out looking at opportunities for ways that we can improve our school buildings to catch up with education trends today. Our brand newest school building, we cut the ribbon 25 years ago. Think about that. Education has changed a lot in those 25 years. By the way, I will never say we're going to touch Eanes Elementary until Eanes Elementary parents ask us for something for that. We absolutely want to help there, but I'm not one of these shut Eanes Elementary or tear it down or modern. We want to do what you want as a community. So all of the above, I want to sum it up. Well, let's keep cuts as far away from classrooms as we can. Let's maintain the level of excellence that we can. Let's advocate at the state to increase the basic allotment. And let's use bonds wisely to help improve our schools and modernize as we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry. We might hold the applause until we
Thank you.
That way we can hear more of their answers. Thank you.
All right, so as a member of our Eanes School Board, I would prioritize fiscal responsibility, equity, and transparency in the budgeting process. And so what I mean for that, for example, I would start to understand our strategic priorities. Our board spends a lot of time thinking about and crafting our strategic priorities, and we need to make sure that there are budgeted dollars tied to those strategic priorities, because quite simply, where you put your money gets focus. So if we say our strategic priorities are important, we need to look for that. I would also look at cost efficiencies to make sure that we are spending our money at scale, so we're getting the best prices on different things. And ultimately, one of the things that James said is we really have to protect our teachers. They are our most precious resource, and we have to make sure that whatever we do, we would not have an education system if we didn't have our teachers. So we really need to pay attention to what our teachers are telling us and absorb that into our strategic priorities and then into the budget. So I want to also talk about bond financing for a little bit. Bond financing is a tool that our district can use to both fund and support strategic priorities. It can help support cool and creative programs such as our robotics program, but it also helps us maintain a state of good repair on our facilities and build new facilities that we otherwise wouldn't have. And those bonding dollars are not subject to recapture, so dollar for dollar, that stays in the district. Because I'm a CFO, I am technical, so I would be looking at the structure of the bonds. I would want to understand if they're callable bonds, understand if there are any negative covenants associated with the bonds. Are there any subordination clauses in there that we need to pay attention to, and just the basic terms of the bond. So again, as a CFO, like, I can bring a bit of technical nerdness. I don't know what you want to call it, but this is really fun stuff for me. And when we start to talk about how we're going to fund our schools, this is where I can truly add a lot of value.
Thank you. Aaron?
Thank you. I have a different perspective, and it's a perspective that a CEO would have. When I think of building a business, I don't think of what I'm going to do in the next 10 months. I want to think about what I'm doing the next 10 years. And how I see things in my study of our situation, I think we're on the verge of what I call a success failure. We have had so much success in this community that we can't quite see or feel yet the failure that's right around the corner. And let me give you an example. We graduate about 750 students every year from Westlake High School, and we take in about 450 kindergartners. At least that's what's in the plan that Mr. Scott has put out there. That gives us a deficit of about 300 students. Well, where are those 300 students going to come from? Well, they're primarily going to come from transfers. So if you just take the 300 and you run it out 10 years, there's going to be a little attrition of some students out, some students in. By my calculation, at publicly available information that's available to this board, we're going to have about 2,100 to 2,500 transfers in our population. That means in 10 years, we're going to have about 30% of our population will be students that are transfers. So we have to ask ourselves, we have to decide right now, if we're going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds, and it could be a B, are we prepared as a community and property taxpayers to raise those bonds, understanding that a third of the bonds will benefit children whose families do not pay those taxes or carry those burdens with them? Or do we structure ourselves and shape ourselves for the community we have, the market we have, and we don't accept so many transfers, and we build a district around what we have here? And if you run that out 10 years, about 10% of our students are transfers and 90% are not. That means our bond dollars that we will raise and we must raise are going to be concentrated on a student population that is 90% of our children. So that is, I think, a big decision we have to make right now. Both are fine, and I can help us do either one. But that's what we have to do. You're not hearing this from the current board. I just told you. This is very, very important that we think about it, and it's all from publicly available information. We have to get straight about what we're going to do first, so when we have the long-term bond committee that we're working on right now, planning committee, they have to be aware of that, because we need to pay for those bonds right now for what we're going to be doing in 10 years, and we need to think about that. I just did. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you. So as a board member on being a board of trustee, I know that I'll be one of 7 people, and I'll be needing to listen to the other people. I'll be pulling from the experience of those around me. I'll be listening to the reports from our CFO, Chris Scott. And I'll also be listening to reports from other avenues. I know when I was on the district leadership team that we would evaluate we would be charged with evaluating programs in our school that had a decreased enrollment or demand, and we would look at those programs to see if they were still fiscally responsible to keep. We never want to cut a program, but sometimes we have to when it's fiscally responsible. I also know that on our campuses we've used some strategic staffing where we had a decrease in the population at Bridgepoint, but we had an increase in population at Cedar Creek. And so we needed to staff an additional specials. And we didn't want to have to hire a whole additional full-time employee, so we shared the employee with Bridgepoint. So our campus had 1 1/3 PE, art, and music teacher, and Bridgepoint had 1 2/3. And that was a really great use of our funds and our money without having to cut any teachers. And we just kind of move things around. We also share a half of a counselor with Forest Trail and Lantry. So that's another way that we've used our budget wisely. As for any cuts, I definitely agree with everyone here that I would not want to cut our salaries. We need to stay competitive with our staff salaries so we can retain and attract. And then we also need to think about how we've invested in our administration and what that investment has brought us, and how Eanes has been ranked #1 in Texas, and how we need to recognize where that comes from. I also agree with bonds. Eanes, like all the other schools in the state of Texas, will use voter-approved bonds to fund capital projects. In the past, we had the aquatics, robotics, wrestling center bond that was really big, and it took a lot of education in the community to bring us together to recognize the importance of that. And if you see it now and you see it in the community, you realize that that was worth the investment, and we'll have to do that again.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you.
New question. We'll start with you, Catherine. So our district student enrollment is declining, and EISD's own studies predict this to be the case for about 8 years. At the same time, property tax recapture rates are increasing. More homeowners are turning 65 and freezing their school taxes. More students are opting to move to private schools. Candidates who support school choice did well in recent primaries, and our governor is pressing for a vote on vouchers in 2025. So how would you address what could be a perfect storm of declines in revenue and enrollment?
All right, so any business person, CFOs especially, we always look to see if we can navigate through our top line, and by top line I mean our different revenue sources. In order to do that, not only do we have our property taxes, but we also need to look at our other revenue sources. We need to understand how and by what tools we could diversify the assets that we have now. So, for example, what do I mean by that? We need to look at our contracts for our facilities and understand that we're charging market rates. We need to look at any investment opportunity and see if there is an ROI, a return on investment for those activities, to ensure that they cash flow and to ensure that they might generate revenue. So as a very concrete example, no pun intended, let's talk about a potential parking garage at the high school. That might be an opportunity for Eanes with wise investment to generate funds that generate long-term revenue for 30, 40, 50 years in the future. And I'm pretty sure that if you have a high schooler right now with a car, you'd be very happy to avoid those parking tickets and park safely at the high school. But also, let's not forget transfers, because regardless of what your personal opinion is on transfers, they are a hedge against the property tax recapture. And so they're just another tool in our toolbox that we need to look at and consider carefully when we determine where and how we apply those transfer students. I know I heard Jeremy Trimble say, we don't create a classroom around transfer students, but if we have a classroom that could, for example, in the elementary school, we could top off the classroom, that's a wise way to use transfers to help fund our schools. And so I just want us to be very black and white, have really open and honest conversations about these things, and know that we have to climb up a mountain with these decisions, but together as a community, we can do it.
Thank you. Aaron?
Thank you. Well, I'm running for a public seat on a public school board. So when it comes to choice, my goal is to take Eanes to the next level of excellence. Choice should not be an option. There'll only be one choice, and that's going to be this school. It'll be a moot choice. So I think that's an easy one for me to understand, and that's one that I will advocate for. We absolutely have to get much more efficient when it comes to expenses. So I've talked about the fact that I've run my own companies. For the last 17 years, my company, I'm a professional contract negotiator. I have negotiated, my team has negotiated, my company has negotiated hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts for financial institutions all across the United States. That's all I do. I go around and speak nationally. I've probably trained thousands of C-level executives on how to negotiate, and I hope that perhaps if I'm seated, I could train some of our staff and help some of our staff understand how to negotiate contracts and restructure all of those expenses. I think what we have to come to the realization is that we are, at the end of the day, a private institution in a public financing system that doesn't work for us. When the folks contemplated recapture, they did not think of a wonderful place like Eanes. So we have got to stop talking about what we don't like about the state, and we've got to do alternative things. It's really easy to wring our hands and complain about recapture. We've been trying to change it for years and years. We can advocate all we want. It's not going to change, and we have to settle with that fact and do something different, and we need to raise revenue. And I'll talk about EEF for just a minute. EEF was one of the great stars of our community, one of the great assets of our community that we should be holding up. Right now, when they write a check for $2.5 million, their donors don't know if they're funding teachers or funding deficits. That's not fair to EEF. We need to unleash EEF. We need to unbridle EEF to do amazing things for this community. There are millions and millions of dollars sitting on the sidelines right now that if we told parents they had options to direct their dollars toward things that are in line with their giving priorities, we wouldn't be having an EEF that's struggling. So we need to look at generating revenue, and we need to be smart. And that's very important to me, and that's what I'm going to advocate for if I'm so fortunate to be seated.
Thank you. Kelly?
So I think one thing we can do to address the situation right now is we could have a committee established, and we can start now looking into what our plan for the future would be. I also know from the demographer report that there was an increase in the past couple of years in enrollment in the secondary level in our schools, and that kind of left the holes more in the primary level at elementary. And they talked about recruiting kindergartners, and I was like, I'm not really sure how we do that. So I contacted one of our principals and said, how are you recruiting kindergartners? And she gave me a really great example that from early enrollment, she has now a first grade class with 77 students. And so she's going to need 4 teachers for that. And she can break that up into 20 and then 3 classes of 19. And she's going to then let the district know that she has 3 spaces in her first grade class, so they can strategically use the applications that they have for transfers to pick 3 first grade students to fit in that class. And now they'll have 4 sections of 20 students, which would create a number of students, which would keep the learning environment the same, but at the same time, it would help subsidize the per pupil expense for that classroom. I was wondering where the transfers were coming from, and so I kind of looked into that, and I could see the growth in the districts around us, and they're not able to build the buildings just yet, and so they are experiencing overcrowding. So we do have parents with elementary students near us that do need these class spaces and would like to have their students come to our campus. So those applications are coming from these high growth districts. I also had thought of a mentor program. I've been working on it with our principal and some of our families, where we have I've noticed that some of our elementary school parents get really nervous in the transition from elementary to middle school because it's such a big jump. And I was thinking that we could have a mentorship program where we could have parents that are currently in middle school help bring those parents from elementary school, help them out and give them advice, show them resources, things like that. The one thing I noticed when I was talking to those parents is that they weren't just upset about, they had anxiety around their student going to the elementary school, but also as well as the anxiety around the specific needs of the student, which that particular mentor could help them find resources for.
Thank you. James?
Thank you. The question included a lot of scenarios that are very doom and gloom and very reality for our district at this point, but way outside of the control of the school board. And therefore, in looking at these kinds of things, I would propose and would act in favor of What I would say is a good defense against these things is to have a good offense. And in this case, let's do what we do best. We provide an excellent education to students. We know how to do that. And when we focus our energy on the classroom and providing that excellent education and keeping Eanes ISD excellent, I said excellent too many times, we create a product that draws these transfer students in. And no matter how you feel about transfers, and we can go back and forth on that all day, the benefit of a transfer, our goal is to keep our classrooms running at an efficient level and to keep all of our buildings open and operating at the maximum efficiency. Transfer students allow us to do that. And when we focus our energy on making Eanes ISD excellent, which is something that this board and administration know how to do all day long, we are the #1 public K through 12 school district in the nation, according to Niche. You can't pick up an article about best places to live if you have children and not see Eanes ISD on that. We do this really well, and I want to continue to focus on excellence in Eanes.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, we'll begin with you, Aaron.
Okay.
Okay, great teachers and staff are so critical to our students' success. How do you propose the board support and retain great teachers to empower them and meet the needs of each student every day?
Yeah. Thank you. When I think about our school system, it's a business. Every business has customers, product, people, and process. Our customers are the people in this room right now, the parents. The product is the education the kids leave with, and the process and the people are the teachers and the curriculum. And if you don't have all four of those things working, you have a problem. Right now, we're losing over 20% of our teachers to attrition. And we'll point to the fact that it's happening everywhere else, and we'll talk about the college system is not producing teachers at the rate. And it is true that the pool of teachers is getting smaller. And in any business in the United States and probably around the world, when you want to get a discrete resource, you have to do things differently. We have to pay our teachers differently. I have a plan that you can download where I want to pay teachers $100,000 or more, and it can be done. We have to stop thinking about raising our teachers' wages by 1 or 2% so we hit the median number. That's not competing, that's called matching. If you want to compete, you got to do things differently. And that's the thinking that I'm going to bring. Our teachers are leaving because they have low pay. They're asked to do too much. They're asked to do way more than teaching these days. And there are very, very high expectations from our parents. I want to see Eanes remove diminish the non-educational distractions and allow our teachers to get back to do what they do great, which is teach. I've talked to many teachers since I've had my podcast privately, and since I've been running for candidate here, I've talked to many teachers, and they all tell me the same thing, and it's a very, very difficult thing to hear while they're leaving. If we do these things, and word gets out that we're preparing to pay teachers like this, and we're showing teachers that they can focus, we will have a line of teachers across the state of Texas wanting to get into this school district. And that's exactly what we should shoot for. We need to stop talking. Every candidate for years and years has continued to talk about fixing this problem with teaching. I think we need to focus on it. We must do it. We don't have any choice anymore. And that's what I aim to do if I'm allowed to be seated.
Thank you. Kelly?
I think with our teachers, we can start with competitive salaries, but from working in the school with our teachers, I do know that the teachers are to schools what nurses are to hospitals, and they're the backbone of the organization. And when you're the backbone of an organization, you can experience some burnout. So teaching is such a personal and professional experience. The teachers are touching our students every day. They're so invested in them. And when they have one student in the class who isn't able to reach their potential, that's where the teacher experiences the frustration, and that's where they can find their burnout. I would like to make sure that we are supporting those teachers. We're talking to them, that we find out what they need, what kind of education they need, what kind of additional services they might need, and what we can do to help to make sure we reach every child every day. One of the examples is when I was on the campus leadership team at our school, we had started restorative practices, and the teachers around the campus were having some trouble figuring out how to implement those, and they wanted more training. And so the Booster Club has a professional budget, and we offered that to our principal and sent a group of our leader teachers to learn, and it was called Train the Trainer. And then we had on our campus now our own leadership trainers. That not only helped our campus establish and train the teachers, but when we had someone new come in, we had a trainer on the campus. So it wasn't just a one-time training, it was a sustainable program. I would like to see us invest in more of those sustainable practices as well. Another amazing thing that made a big difference on our campus was through the garden committee, we created a courtyard for the teachers, and I found out through one of our students that the teachers are out there regularly, and they even have their planning time out there as well as lunches, and it's made a big difference for our school. And so I would like to continue to see us looking into places and spaces like that for our teachers. I'd also like to see opportunities for career advancement. I think that's very important for our teachers. I was at administration recently and ran into Allison Ike, and she was a teacher at our campus, and now she's working in the curriculum development, and I'd like to see us continue to find ways to advance our teachers.
Thank you. James?
Yeah. First of all, I was a Cub Scout leader when my son was about 6, and one of the boys decided to leave and not be in Cub Scouts, and it blew my mind. I thought, how can you leave Cub Scouts? And I was kind of heartbroken. And I started to realize that life is about making choices, and that's an important step for a young person to make. And so I started to embrace that idea. And when I look at our teachers, we're not losing teachers to go teach at AISD. We're not losing teachers to go to Lake Travis. We're not losing teachers to go to Dripping Springs. We're losing teachers who are following passions, who are retiring, who may be moving to a different city. We're not a bad employer. We're a great employer. We're one of the best in the county. And therefore, the teacher attrition, I can't be upset at a teacher who goes and leaves teaching to go follow a passion. I respect that, and I embrace that. But nonetheless, we and every school district in the area and the state is facing a crisis of teachers. And frankly, to me as an employer, I don't want an employee who's only working for me for the money. And bear with me. I want an employee who's working with me because we have a culture of success. We have a culture that matters. They feel welcome and grateful to be a part of that family. And that's what I encourage. I have met with Lori Lee on different occasions and have encouraged her. I've challenged her. I've said, let's be the #1 place to work in Central Texas. Not #1 school district. Let's be the #1 place to work in Central Texas. And we will chase salaries forever and bigger school districts that get more money because we are funding high growth, low income districts, which we are not. Those districts will continue to beat us over the head with money. We can't chase money. I want our teachers to make as much as possible. And every extra dime we have in our budget, I have dedicated to staff salary increases. But I want to focus on creating a culture where people want to be in our classrooms. I want your child's teacher to want to be there, to love Eanes ISD. And I think that's the important focus we need to have.
Catherine?
All right, thank you. I firmly believe that teachers are our most precious resource, and I believe that our teachers are following a calling to educate, a calling to bring about a sense of awe in our students, a sense of wonder, and that comes from the learning process. I think if there's something that COVID taught us, and we had our children at home, that many of us don't have that calling. I experienced that personally. And so I just want us to think about the magic that happens in the classroom and understanding from a teacher's perspective. Let's get the teacher's perspective on the and get feedback from them to understand what's happening, to really get that one-on-one conversational level of data, understand why they're attriting out of this calling that they've chosen. And also, because I am a data person, I want to add that to other metrics that we should be looking at, right? Let's do exit interviews. Let's really understand why teachers are leaving. I don't believe it's because of salary. I think it's to James' point that they've decided after a certain period of time that they're ready to do something else. But while they're here, let's reward them. Gracias a Dios for EEF, because EEF truly does help us fund our teachers, and the majority of our budget goes directly to their salary. So just briefly back to data. Before we would make any decisions on what we need to do, let's understand what the data is telling us, and then we can direct that to our weak areas. So whether our teachers need professional development, or we do need to take a look at our pay structure, or if there's a desire for more collaboration, whether across classrooms or across campuses, these are the types of things that makes Eanes sticky, right? These are the types of things that keep our teachers here with us.
Thank you. And now each of you will have a chance to make some closing remarks. If there's something you wanted to say and didn't get a chance to, here's your chance to do it.
Probably had an extra question or an extra time.
Well, I was instructed to do otherwise, so.
We can do two things, and I'll take some input from y'all. We can give y'all an extra question, or we can give you some time to visit with some of our audience afterwards.
I'd love an extra question.
I'd like to visit with
I'd
the
like
community.
to visit, yeah.
So I think there's a majority who'd like to visit with the community.
Good.
How about Catherine? Well,
Yes, I would love to talk to everyone here tonight.
Well, not that I don't want to talk to people.
I
I
know.
want to talk to people.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have closing.
So we'll start with Kelly for your closing remarks, please.
Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. I've been in this district for 15 years, and I've dedicated a lot of time and service to it, and it's been very fulfilling to me, and I really have appreciated getting to work with our community members and be in support of our teachers and be in support of our students. I have very much enjoyed working inside our schools as an employee. During COVID, it was a very difficult time, and I liked being in there and liked helping out and liked being a positive voice when everyone else was going through a really hard time, and I could see that, and I could do as much as possible for them. I also have enjoyed serving through our Westlake Chamber of Commerce, and I very much enjoy being embedded in our business community now and helping find ways for our business community to support our schools as well. And Tim and I are very excited to be celebrating 10 years of being leadership donors to the Eanes Education Foundation. We love funding our teachers, and we think that's very important. And I once again would just like to thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you. James?
Thank you. In closing, I just want to go back to my why. I introduced myself and talked about my sons and bragged on them a little bit. And I'm not sure, but maybe I've got texts telling me, "Hey, Dad, shut up." But the other half of this is that I represent. I'm a member of the fastest growing segment of our community, and that is taxpayers with no children in our schools. We now represent over 50% of this community. And yet, as one of the candidates said a moment ago, our board should reflect our community. Our board does not reflect our community in that aspect. I serve out of a passion to make sure that the children of today and tomorrow receive the same great education that my children receive, the same opportunity for that education. I also serve as a taxpayer without children in the school who believes in overseeing the fiscal responsibility of this district to serve our whole community. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. I hope that you will consider voting for me in the election. I appreciate your support. I appreciate it is energizing every day to hear from community members who comment on the positive things going on in our district. And I would say that I don't believe in this doom and gloom. I think we're doing great, and we're going to do more great things. And I'm grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
All right. I want to thank everyone for coming and listening to us tonight. The Rolling Wood community has just opened up their arms to all the trustees and had open and honest conversations in people's homes and on sidewalks, and it's been truly amazing. And the decision for me to run was not one that I took lightly, because I am a single parent with 3 children, 2 still in elementary. So I think there's a lot of weight and gravitas about the conversations that we have to have as a district together. The biggest issue that I just personally see right now is the impact of state recapture. Recapture is actually a great equity measure across Texas. That means that all students receive the same level of funding. The problem is that the funding is from pre-pandemic levels. It's from 2019. That was 5 years ago. And now we're living in 2024 on post-pandemic dollars. And you know the impact because you go to HEB or Randall's, whatever your preference, and you buy a bag of grapes and you're like, wow, that's much more expensive than it used to be, right? So I just think about, as I go through this process, I really wanted to educate myself. So I've been looking at state statutes. I've been looking to understand the impact of the weighted average daily attendance. I've been looking to understand special education, the extra funding we do receive from the state, and also the cost of educating special education students. And I have 3 children who receive those services, so we benefit. And also understanding the mechanism of transfers, because there are some nuances here that it's important that our trustees understand. But just to kind of wrap this up, I ran the numbers, and if you look at our current student allotment, which is $6,160, if you took that 2019 funding and you put it in 2024 dollars, we would not have a deficit. Let me say that again. If you took the funding dollars from 2019 and you put it into today's dollars, we wouldn't have a deficit. So I'm a CFO. This is what I do for a living, and I'm here to support the community on these big challenges. And I'm running for place 5. There are 3 of us here representing place 5, but I would ask that you vote for me, knowing that I have your best interest at heart at the 2 things that mean the most to you, which is your children and your pocketbooks.
Thank you. Aaron?
To be an effective leader, you've got to be positive. I'm very positive. I live in the community. My kids are here. But you've also got to be clear, and you've got to be sober, and you've got to be transparent. We are in a tough spot right now. We do have 20% plus attrition rate. We are passing multi-million-dollar deficits, and we will continue in the future doing that. I want you to think of a concept I call 3-3-3. Right now we have 3 months of cash in our rainy day fund. According to Mr. Scott, in 3 years we will have less than 3 weeks. That is sobering, but we have to understand it. I know that transfers are a part of our future. There's no question about it. You can't get around it. What I'm asking is to what degree? And are we prepared to raise hundreds of millions of dollars of debt to build an institution where a large portion of the students don't have parents that are carrying that bond debt with us? I'll do either plan. We can execute either plan, or we can shape our district to the district we have, which is a slow growth district with gentlemen like this, that I'll be like him soon when my children leave. And I understand that. We have to be clear about it. We're making decisions right now that are going to affect us 10 years from now. I really believe I can be a tremendous asset to this school district. We need diversity of thought on our board. We have some very talented people on the board, no less. But I believe I can bring a voice and a perspective that is lacking. And what you'll get from me is this type of communication, not silence. If you want to know more about me, just listen to my podcast. Listen to the issues that we discuss and how we discuss them. I'm very serious about what I do. And I'm very serious about helping this school district and this board and all these wonderful students and children and parents that we all love and care for. That's where my heart is. But we've got to be clear. And we've got to be sober about what we're about ready to do. I'll do either. And I'll help the board do either successfully. And that's why I want you to vote for me. I think it's time we have a business person, a leader, a true leader and entrepreneur on this board. Our district needs it. And I'm here to serve. Last comment I'll make, I was raised by a former Marine. My dad's gone 3 years now, and he always told me, Aaron, duty, honor, country, serve. And I'm ready to serve, and I want your vote. Thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and thanks to all of you for coming tonight. And I would encourage you to go vote. Early voting begins April 22nd through the 30th at Randall's, and Election Day voting is Saturday, May 4th at the Westlake United Methodist Church. Thanks so much. Enjoy
Thank you.
talking to your candidates.
Thank all of y'all for doing this, and thank everybody for coming. Spend some time, please be respectful of our staff's time. I'd like to thank Ashley for helping out, sorry I zoned out there. And our chief for being here, keeping most of me in order, I guess. And thank the city of Rollingwood for providing us
Thank you.
this opportunity to do this. So, and we do thank y'all. And please spend some time, try to leave a little bit of time for y'all to visit with some of our.
I'll be right here in this corner.
There you
Over
go.
here.
Okay,
So
thanks
thank
so
you again
much.
for everybody coming.